Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I've got the Canon 35mm f1.4 lens here that I want to talk to you guys about. Now, this lens is considered by many to be part of Canon's holy trinity of lenses. It's this, along with the 85-1.2 and the 135 f2, are considered by many to be some of the best lenses Canon has ever made, and it's hard to disagree with any of them, especially this lens. Now, I've never used a 35mm prime before, and I never really had a desire to do so, to be honest with you, because whenever I need a wide angle lens, it's usually I'm shooting events or groups, and so a zoom lens, a 24-70, usually just makes more sense for me. But I rented this for one specific event that I had planned on shooting, and I wanted to have that f1.4 aperture because I knew it was going to be a low light situation, and I wanted to let a lot of light in. So I rented this, and when it came in, well, let me back up. Whenever I buy a lens or rent a lens, I'm usually sitting at the door like a kid on Christmas waiting for FedEx to get here so that I can open my lens and play with it. When this came in, it sat there literally almost the entire day before I even opened it, because I was like, it's a 35mm, what's the big deal? But once I finally opened it, I put this on my camera and I went out and I started shooting with it, just playing around, just my kids, my dogs, my fiance. And I absolutely fell in love with this lens. It delivers some amazing images. The unique look that it gives, the sharpness, and what really blew me away was the shallow depth of field. Now, in the past, like I said, if I needed to shoot at 35mm or at a wide angle, I was typically doing it on a 24-70, so that meant that the widest aperture that I had was f2.8. But even then, a lot of times if I'm shooting at a wide angle, it's because I'm shooting a group, and so I wanted some extra depth of field, so maybe I was shooting at f4, f5.6, or maybe even a landscape shot at anywhere from f8 to f11. So I've never really tried shooting at 35mm for shooting like individuals or very small groups, and so I was shocked at how shallow of a depth of field you can get with this. Now, I ended up shooting a lot of basically shots of people with this, and the one thing that is a little bit different and awkward is that when you're shooting at 35mm to fill your frame, whenever you're shooting like, let's say, one person, you've got to get very close to them. And that's part of the reason why I've never really done a lot of shooting at 35mm whenever I'm doing portraits and things like that, because I like to have a nice comfortable distance between me and my subject. Typically 85mm is about the distance I like to be. And so this kind of put me into an area that I was a little bit uncomfortable with, but I loved the images, and it really made me start thinking a little bit more about my composition and things like that. I fell in love with this lens. I actually ended up extending my rental period because I liked this lens so much I wanted to keep using it, and I'm kind of sad that I have to send it back. But like I said, what I was amazed with is that when you shoot at f1.4, even though it's a 35mm, you can get an extremely shallow depth of field because you're so close to your subject. It really helps to isolate your subject, and like I said, I fell in love with this lens. Even before, I rent my gear from lensrental.com, and even before I had rented any gear from them, and I'm not at all affiliated with lensrental.com, but I always like to read Roger's take on lenses, and Roger works at Lens Rental, so he's got access to a lot of gear, basically anything anybody could ever want. So he's kind of got a unique perspective about photography equipment, and he's very knowledgeable. And he said that he finds himself trying to find a reason to shoot at 35mm so that he can use this lens. And I found myself doing the same thing. Everywhere I went, I had this lens in my camera bag. Even whenever I really knew that I wasn't going to use it, I put it in my camera bag in hopes of finding a way to use it because I just liked the unique perspective it gave. It gave some interesting looks on portraits and small groups, and just everything that I went to, it just delivered some amazing image quality. Now, I haven't had the opportunity to use the Sigma 35mm f1.4, but from what I've been told by people who have and who own it, it is sharper than this Canon lens. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but I can tell you from using this one, I absolutely love this lens. But again, it is kind of a challenge to use because in some situations, whenever I had this on my camera, it was frustrating because maybe I couldn't get as close to my subjects as I wanted, and that was the biggest frustration that I ran into, was not being able to get close enough to people. Sometimes whenever I was photographing events, maybe there's a table in the way, and you know, I was just too far away to get the shots that I wanted, and that's the reason why I really prefer a zoom whenever I'm photographing events. But despite that limitation, this lens is amazing, and it is at the top of my wish list. So if anybody wants to buy me one or has one that they don't want anymore, you can send it to me. Absolutely love this lens. I highly recommend it. The autofocus works very fast, it's very accurate, the images are sharp, and it will deliver some amazing images. So hopefully that answered any questions you guys might have. If you guys have any questions, leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, guys.